Are you making some of the most basic football mistakes out there that are also holding you back as a player? Well, in today's video, we made a big overview of 23 common mistakes and also how to avoid them. So if you want to improve, use this as a list of mistakes you need to eliminate from your game so you can improve as a player.
But of course, making mistakes in a football match isn't ideal, and in the perfect world you would make no mistakes. By the way, when I'm talking about mistakes, I mean when you fail to do something that you'd normally be expected to be able to do. So, unnecessary mistakes really. Because in my book, there are also mistakes that are okay. Because in football, if you want to do anything remotely creative, you have to take risks. And by taking risks, that involves that sometimes things work, other times they don't. And of course, the more times you can make it work, the better of a player you are. But by taking risks, it also means that sometimes, inevitably, you will fail. However, when you take risks, it's a calculated risk. And in my book, that's okay. As long as you don't go and make the same mistake over and over and over again, because then it becomes unnecessary. And we want to avoid that, right? But the thing is that you shouldn't go out there being afraid of making mistakes, because if you try to play completely without risk because you hate making mistakes, you will become a passenger who play only to avoid making mistakes. And by doing so, yes, it might not be your fault, you who screwed up when your team loses the ball. It might not be you that your teammates shout at in frustration when things go wrong. But on the other hand, it also won't be you that they applaud or cheer at when you do something good for the team. So no, you won't do anything extraordinarily bad, but you won't do anything extraordinarily good either. So if you play completely without risk, you won't really do anything of note on the pitch. So, reality is that when you play football, mistakes will happen. And sadly, unlike FIFA, there's no rewind button that you can press.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
Now we rewind button that you can press and try to go again. No, when you make a mistake, it's done and there's nothing you can do about it. But in fact, there is. Because when you make a mistake, you have two choices. One about how you react now, and another choice about how you react later. And if you make a mistake, what you can do right now is to either accept the mistake and let it go, or you can use it to beat yourself with. Let it get to your head, affect your confidence and the rest of your match. And I know, guys, it's really difficult to just let it go, to not be hard on yourself, to not take it inwards and blame yourself. But the thing is that blaming yourself, being annoyed about it, it doesn't help you. It just takes away your focus from the match itself. So try to let that initial disappointment go and instead focus on how you get the win next time you get the ball so you can get your head back in the game and bring your A game. So focusing on the mistakes doesn't help you. So why do it? But what's often even harder is what happens after the training session or the match. And that is when it's just you and your thoughts. Because you might be running everything back and the mistakes might be coming back to you and haunting you, gnawing at your self-confidence. And here, again, you have two options. You can accept and analyze the mistakes and learn from them, or you can keep beating yourself with them and letting them get to your self-confidence, knock you down, make you feel less worthy of playing football, and ultimately, in the worst case, affect your desire to go and play football next time because you are afraid of the uncertainty that making mistakes brings. And that really sucks.
I don't believe it. That is why you fail.
So again, guys, you need to be constructive about things. Why did you make the mistake? And how can you go and make sure that you don't make the mistake again next time you play? And I don't care how you do it. You can go and train more on your own, you can watch tutorials, or you can work on that very specific thing that you want to eliminate from your game. It's up to you. Just promise me that you go out there constructively, so you build up the confidence that next time you go and play, you will do everything in your power to make sure that you play that little bit better. Look, you made a mistake, there's nothing you can do about it, but what you can do something about is how you use that mistake to move forward. okay? And guys, these two choices was actually the key in changing things around for me. I've always been the kind of player that has struggled a little bit with self-confidence and making mistakes in matches, because I couldn't really understand why I was making these bad, unnecessary mistakes, because I felt I was a better player, and it really affected my self-confidence in matches. It kind of made me freeze at times, not play to my full potential, and it really hurt. Sometimes it felt like the easiest way out was just to stop playing football, and that's the worst imaginable feeling to have if you love to play the game. But one day, it just flipped for me. I realized that instead of using the mistakes to make me feel worse and weigh me down, I could use the mistakes to just have a burning desire to go and play again next time. Basically, to go and prove everyone, and especially myself, wrong, that I was indeed a better player and that I could improve. So basically, right now, the worse I play, the more mistakes I make, the more I can't wait to go and play again, to push on, to learn and improve and set things right, basically. And I know it might be difficult if you were like me and you used to beat yourself with your mistakes, but if you can, try and flip it around, turning into the desire to go and fix things, learn things, move forward. And maybe, just maybe, you will turn mistakes from being your enemy into a tool that you can use to improve. That's the goal. So guys, when you make mistakes, and you will, you have two choices to make. I know they're hard and you won't become a master of this overnight, but try to not let it affect you during the match. And also, after the match is done, try to be constructive about how you learn from the mistakes instead, okay? I know it's tough, but I hope that one day you can get rid of the fear of making mistakes and instead use all your energy to express yourself, be your best you on the pitch.
Number one, getting tunnel vision. See, in modern football, being a winger is probably one of the most sexy positions because you get to dribble a lot, score some goals, and generally be very creative. But the thing is that since the winger's role is so defined, it's easy to get the idea that when you get the ball, there's only one direction to go, and that's straight towards the goal. That also means that a lot of young wingers get tunnel vision, so they get the ball, they turn, and immediately just start going towards the goal, no matter how many defenders are in front of it. And unless they've got gold-tier dribbling skills, that almost never ends well. See, the thing is that when you get tunnel vision, boom, boom, you tend to think less. And that means that apart from risking getting stuck in a dead end with a couple of defenders around you and nowhere to go, you also risk being so focused on the solo run that you don't see teammates making good runs around you going into dangerous positions. And that's the other side of the coin. If the defender knows that you're likely to go on a solo run every single time you get the ball in order to go to goal, it's going to be super easy to defend against you because he doesn't have to worry about you doing anything unexpected because he knows you're going to dribble. So when you get the pass, you look up and you assess the situation. Is the defender in front of you alone, which would give you the advantage in a dribbling situation? Is there maybe a teammate making a support run in a dangerous position? Or is the way ahead blocked by too many defenders, meaning that you should probably just step on the ball, pass it backwards so you can switch play to the other side? Of course, a winger needs to be able to beat a man or two or maybe even three. But the good wingers realize that the less the defender knows about what's going to happen, the more unexpected you can be, the bigger of an advantage you have. Don't get tunnel vision. Number two, blindly making crosses, which has something to do with getting tunnel vision from number one. But a mistake I see a lot of young wingers do is to work hard to get in a good crossing position, and when they do, they just blindly cross the ball into the box without really looking up or thinking. And sure, you might have some coaches telling you that it's your job to cross the ball and the striker's job to then be in the box where and when the ball comes. And it makes sense, but it's not always entirely true. See, a good winger realizes that it's not just your job to put a cross in the box and job well done. No, the good winger understands that you actually need to look up into the box and then only cross the ball if you have a teammate or two in there. And of course, if you see them, they're at the penalty spot when you look up, you pass the ball ahead of them so they can run into it. Because the thing is that if you cross the ball blindly and there's no one in the box, you're basically unnecessarily giving the ball away, and there's no need to do that. So if you look up, you see there's no one there. Don't be afraid to step on the ball, pass it backwards, and keep possession. Number 3, standing on your heels when the ball is coming. Now, I know, it's football 101, and we learned it as kids, to stay on your toes when the ball is coming, so we're ready. But I still see a lot of young wingers just standing around there waiting for the ball to come. And when it finally does, they're standing on their heels, meaning that their balance is a bit backwards, meaning that it takes a bit longer for them to start moving forwards towards the ball. And that gives the defender time to start coming in and nicking the ball away from me because they're moving and I'm standing on my heels. So get on your toes and be ready. Number 4 is turning straight into a defender. Now, I'm not sure if you can already see where this is going, but if I get the ball from my fullback and I'm so focused on just turning around and going to goal, score that winner. So I don't know what's going on behind me. I just turn straight into Philip. That's trouble, right? You don't want that, but it's actually a very easy way to avoid it. And I've talked about it before, but when the ball is coming, you look up to see what's going on behind you. And if there's a defender close to you, that means that you can either just pass the ball straight back where it came from or to a teammate that you can see. It's very important that you only move into places or pass into spaces that you can see to keep it simple. Of course, it also helps if your teammates tell you back or if you can turn. Number 5, hiding and isolating yourself on the flank. Look, you're a winger and maybe your coach have told you to make the pitch wide and go to the touchline, and that makes sense. But you shouldn't just go there and, as I said earlier, stand around, wait for the ball to come to you. No. If there's a defender around you and you're standing where you're supposed to be, you're not going to be very dangerous. So it's your job to shake off the defender, maybe by coming deep, getting the pass, laying it back off, and then running deep to shake the defender off, because you have the upper hand here. On the other side, if the defender is close to you still, you can't make the deep run. Phil, come in front of me. You have to find another way of getting into open spaces and making yourself available. Because if Phil is standing right here, you're standing in his shadow, your teammates can't pass you the ball. So get out, make yourself available. An open winger is a dangerous winger, so be dangerous. So to sum it up, don't get tunnel vision. Don't put crosses blindly into the box. Don't stand on your heels when the passes are coming. Don't turn straight into defenders, and don't isolate yourself on the flank. Cool? Cool.
Now, the first mistake when doing skills is to overthink things. I know myself because I've done it a lot. But the thing is that skills tend to work best when they come instinctively from inside, or when you basically react to everything that's going on around you. So where's the goal? How many defenders are there? Where are they coming from? How fast are they coming at you? All those little inputs that your brain can take in and react to. But the thing is that if you start overthinking things, not only will you take your focus off of what's important, which is the action on the pitch, but it also slow your decision making down, making you react just a little bit slower to everything that's going on around you. And the thing is that being indecisive when taking on a defender makes it a whole lot more difficult to actually beat them. So when you are in a training session and you have to take on a defender, try to follow your instinct, or at least that first idea that pops up in your head. And hopefully all those hours of individually training your skills will pay off. And if your instinct isn't enough to beat the defender, maybe you should train more. And then your instinct is up to scratch. It is what it is. Now, another mistake I see a lot of players doing when they try to pull off especially fancy moves is that they simply do them too fast. Now, I realize that most skills require some sort of speed and fluidity to work, and it doesn't really work if you just stand around and break down, let's say, an elastico into many different steps at turtle speed. But you can also take it too far in the other direction and simply do the trick so fast that your technique and your feet can't keep up. And this, guys, is where training comes into play. So basically, when you get pressured by a defender, come under a lot of pressure, you get stressed, your brain and your body knows the trick so well that it knows at which pace you're comfortable doing it, how you need to do it, and all that stuff. So even though you're stressed, you're under pressure, you don't rush it. Training is the key. But you know what's also a pretty big mistake? Not looking up. Because you might have all the coolest skills in the world on lock and be able to do them in your sleep. But if you don't look up before and while you're doing the skills, well, it might not work. Because you might be running yourself into a dead end with 3 or 4 defenders, or you actually might just be executing the skill too early or too late. But the worst part about not looking up is that you're not able to react to whatever happens around the pitch. So, does the defender do something else that you expected him or her to do, or do other defenders arrive behind them for backup? What happens? Well, it turns out that playing football without really seeing what's going on around you is pretty difficult. And you want to make things easy. So look up and make it easy, execute your skill, and you're winning. But the fourth mistake to avoid is also a pretty important one, and that is to avoid focusing too much on humiliating the opponent. Now look, you might be a baller, you might know a lot of cool skills, and you might feel that you're in control at a particular moment in a match. Let's say you're on the flank. Defender's coming at you trying to defend, but the legs are wide open. Okay, so you beat them with a panna. Now there's a nice opportunity to make a good cross, maybe score a goal. But the defender is coming back, legs are still wide open, so ooh, we get another panna. That's embarrassing, that's humiliating. But now the crossing opportunity is not the best. But the defender's still there, so get another panna. But ooh, defender takes the ball, now you've lost it. You missed a good crossing, potentially scoring opportunity because you wanted to look like a boss. Look guys, when you play a match, you might have all the skill, but you need to focus on what's important. That is helping the team and scoring goals. And look, if you perform a wicked skill that sits the defender down and you go on to score afterwards, great. We all love beautiful football, seeing nice things, but it shouldn't take your mind off of what's really important. So don't focus on humiliating players. I mean, what's more important? Getting 2-3 nutmegs or making the game-winning assist? I know what I'd take. It's not the nutmegs. Plus, don't be a jerk. And then there's mistake number 5, which kind of ties into mistake number 4, and that is to unnecessarily overcomplicate things. Because again, you might know some very cool skills that have 2, 3, 4 steps to them and look really, really awesome. But if the most effective way to beat a defender is a body feint or a croqueta, then why would you do the complicated, really difficult stuff? I mean, the more you complicate things, the more things can also go wrong. So, you get where I'm going. I will always be an advocate of keeping things as simple and risk-free as possible. Again, what wins you the match? 2, 3 nutmegs or 1 assist? The first thing that will make you an average player is if you constantly look down. It's something I think we've all done while playing football, especially if we're not 100% comfortable on the ball. But looking down constantly is kind of a problem because it means that you, for good reasons, can't see A, your teammates, especially if they're making good runs and you should give them a pass, or B, the opponents and how far away they are from you, meaning that you don't know how much time you have. So try to get better on the ball so you have the chance to look up. Because when you look up, you have the chance to not only react to the game around you, but also to start acting and think ahead. And it's actually really important because if you don't do this, then the second you receive the ball, everything you do with it is going to be improvised and rushed.
And making a hurried decision is only going to increase the chance of you making a mistake. So, at the second you get the ball, make sure that you always look around, orient yourself around the pitch to see what options you have if you get a pass right now. Maybe you have a teammate that's open to your left. Maybe you can dribble going ahead, or there are 3 guys around you, so you know that's not what you should do. So think ahead, and you're gonna make a lot less mistakes. Another thing that will make you look and feel average on the pitch is if you hide. Because being anonymous and not really demanding the ball at all times is actually going to make it really hard for your teammates, because not only will you, as a player, be very easy to close down, it also means that you won't attract any attention away from your opponents for your teammates. And that means that they might not see you as a threat. They might not be afraid of you because they know you're not going to get the ball anyway. Instead, if you scream, you shout, you make runs, you demand the ball and let people know you're here, well, then the opposition has to take it seriously. They're gonna have to come and cover you, leaving space in behind you for your teammates. Also, don't be the guy who always looks for the killer pass. Look, some of the best footballers out there are the ones who know when to go for glory and when to keep it simple. And okay, you might have an awesome passing range and that's great, but if you constantly try to make the killer pass, it's also going to mean that your team will most likely lose possession a whole lot, because it doesn't always work. And also your teammates might be less likely to trust and give you the ball because frankly they have no idea what you're going to do with it. But the biggest sin in football is probably to be selfish with the ball. Too selfish with the ball. Because if you get the ball off a teammate, you think you can do it all on your own. Take on 4 players, dribble past them and put it top bins to win the match. It doesn't really work, because no one likes a player like that, and that's probably because there's more chance of it failing than you succeeding. So learn when to let go of the ball, do it often, and find out that often making a 1-2 or playing off the third man is often the best way to split open a defense. Plus, everyone is not gonna hate you. Now, the first thing I wish I knew as a kid is to not be afraid of failing. Now actually, I used to be, believe it or not, a goalkeeper for my first many years, and that meant that when I finally moved outfield, my technique wasn't the best, to say the least. And that also meant that I almost never succeeded when I took on players or tried anything remotely fancy. But that's the deal with taking risks. At first, you're probably gonna fail because you've never done it before and you're thus likely not very good at it. But if you do it again, and again, and again, and again, your body becomes accustomed to it, you'll learn, you become good at it, to the point where it's actually not that big of a risk anymore. So, if I got the ball and faced a defender, I would actually, as a kid, rather just pass it to my teammate than take on Phil in a 1-versus-1 situation, because failing in these situations was one of the things I dreaded the most. In other words, I'd actually just rather play it safe and be an alibi player, which is not a very good look, rather than take the risk, be okay with failing once in a while, and then actually improve as a football player in the process. And that's the thing you need to remember. Football is a fun game. We're supposed to have fun. We're supposed to want the ball and not take everything too seriously, because remember that in order to improve, you need to get out of your comfort zone and try new things. So wait! Now, another thing I really wish I'd known as a kid was that I need to develop my weak foot. See, none of my coaches back then were too focused on it, so I didn't spend much time on actually using my weak foot either. And that was another aspect of it, because using my weak foot meant failure more often than not, and I didn't like that, so I never did it. I did, however, have a friend who actually stayed behind after each training to shoot with his left foot, and he ended up being really good with both. So don't make the mistake I did. Go out, actually use your weak foot, develop it, make it better, because having 2 good feet is gonna make you a better football player. And if you want to know how to do that, I've actually made a tutorial on it very recently that's gonna pop up on the screen, which you should really go and watch. Another thing I've had to work a lot on, because I never spent time on it as a kid, is to keep a cool head.
And I really wish someone had told me back then to slow things down and again, to not get too nervous or overthink things when I'm on the pitch. Of course, these days I'm getting older and more experienced, and I know that I'm a good football player, so I can trust my instincts to take over and most of the time do the right thing. But man, it would have been so good for my development if someone had just told me to keep it cool and not be too nervous when I'm on the pitch, because it would have saved me a lot of unnecessary time just getting my composure at the right spot. And I could have spent that developing, well, so much more to my game. So remember, football is just a game. It's supposed to be fun, and you're probably already a pretty good player, so just keep it cool, don't take it too seriously, and it's all gonna work out. Finally, I found out just how important it is to communicate with your teammates. As a kid, I said nothing. I was silent as the grave, but as I've gotten older, I've learned just how much easier it is to play football when you talk to each other as a team. So these days, I'm just constantly screaming and shouting when I'm running around on the pitch. And I basically demand from my teammates that if you have a teammate in front of you, it's your job to tell him to either push up or fall back a little or go left or go right. Because your team, you have to help each other and it has to happen. You have to speak up. So remember that. And just start off with the easy left-right calls of which channel you want them to close off. And eventually you're gonna feel more confident speaking up on the pitch, directing your teammates. And that increases your value as a player.
Apart from the stuff that Jay said, I really want to jump in and talk about focus, because when I was a kid, I spent 2 years focusing on freestyle and football. But if you want to excel in either of those things, you need to focus 100% on that sport. I didn't. It took me 2 years to realize, and here I am as a freestyler. But what could have happened if I spent all my time on playing football? Who knows? And it goes without saying, don't spend unnecessary time on unnecessary stuff.
Now, of course, these things don't come overnight, but if you start working on avoiding these 23 mistakes when you play, I assure you that you'll eventually feel a difference and feel like a much better player. But what should we teach you next? Let us know in the comment section right down below. Make sure to subscribe with the notifications on, of course, and consider learning more football skills in the playlist in the bottom left corner. And with that, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.